As I rise to make my contribution to Budget 2023, I would like to take this opportunity to wish all a Happy New Year. Speaker, before I continue, I would like to, thank the honorable member that just spoke to remind us that our motto is one people, one nation, one destiny. Thank you very much for that. Mr. Speaker, I also want to make a comment on honorable member Ms. Sonia, and when she said that the two major projects that we contribute towards 2023 budget is the Demerara Harbor Bridge and the Gas Shore project, and when that finished, the budget will go down. I fully agree with her, Mr. Speaker, but I want to remind her that the records, what guarantee do we have that the budget will go down, Mr. Speaker? I want to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that the fiber optic cable project was a Whiteley fund. I want to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that the specialty hospital was a Whiteley fund. I want to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that the Skelland Sugar Factory was a Whiteley fund. I want to remind the House, Mr. Speaker, that the Amelia's Fast project is still there, and they can't get it up the ground, Mr. Speaker. What guarantee do we have as Guyanese that that budget will come down, or they're not going to be setting another project in line? Mr. Speaker, I want to also congratulate all those hardworking public servants who spend the wee hours in preparing Budget 2023, and the Honorable Minister, Senior Minister of Finance. Mr. Speaker, I thought this budget would have reached $1 trillion this year compared to last year with the number of supplementals we had to approve. But if it did, it wouldn't matter because the people of Guyana is not benefiting directly from this budget, Mr. Speaker. There is no excitement. There is no excitement, Mr. Speaker, of 2023 budget. No excitement. They have to find themselves, Mr. Speaker, promoting a budget. Imagine that. Nevertheless, sir, I would like to turn your attention to the environment and what it means to Guyanese people and what happens in a blink of an eye. Sir, in 2016, thanks to the AP and UFC government that signed the oil deal that now rescue Guyana's economy, making it the 5th fastest growing economy in the world. We have brought this new revenue stream that's now placed in the hands of the PPP, who seems clueless how to spend this revenue. Despite, Mr. Speaker, despite early warnings of the Dutch disease. Mr. Speaker, it is upon us, as mentioned in the budget speech by the Senior Finance Minister. It is real. Contrary, sir, contrary to what I heard in the Al Jazeera interview. Many of you know that. The Al Jazeera interview, where efforts were made to redefine the Dutch disease, Mr. Speaker. The guardrails was destroyed, sir. Where the PPP in this year, in this very house, removed the 22 members oversight committee, comprised of various members of societies that covers the entire spectrum of our country, Mr. Speaker. It was reduced to 5 members committee, where 2 from the opposition were to be selected opposition, but because of the dictatorial approach by the government, they selected who they want, a breach of their own law, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, things will get worse than this Dutch disease. As I look into the budget, I didn't see any major spending for the EPA to build upon what the coalition handed over with respect to its human capacity and infrastructure development. When the coalition government took over in 23 years of destruction to the EPA, it was dysfunctional. It had only 2 vehicles to inspection and monitoring, which meant that no field monitoring and inspection occurred. No filing system of records to even now to know how many permits and operation existed. Mr. Speaker, unbelievable. Coalition found that the agency did not even have records of numerous operations that there were 600 expired permits over some 15 years. Mr. Speaker, with less than 3 years, the EPA discovered that 2,000 projects existed, brought all permits and operation into compliance, and had 8 brand new vehicles without a dime from the Treasury, Mr. Speaker, without a dime from the Treasury. But funded by the collective of $150 million in fees owed from expired permits and back fees, built a state-of-the-art registry, Mr. Speaker, and filing system to manage these projects, increased staff by 20% with engineers and scientists, which the agency was severely lacking, triple the number of EPA offices from 1 to 3 by adding offices in Quarantine and Linden, Mr. Speaker, to ease the financial burden and inconveniences of businesses people, having to travel to Georgetown only to conduct business. Establish a 24/7 compliance hotline with a 24-hour response time, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have done to the EPA. And develop a culture of transparency, free access to media and public, Mr. Speaker, which is absent today. Mr. Speaker, instead of them building upon the strong foundation which we handed to them, they are now reverted back to the old destructive ways of the PPP. Staff are now being directed to issue permits without inspection, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, most disturbingly, we learned that Exxon files have moved directly to the Executive Director Office. The question is, what is so special about this company and why is it moved there, sir? What is there to hide? And why is the company being treated differently to even our local businesses, Mr. Speaker? Mr. Speaker, capacity building. Mr. Speaker, the EPA had no one with a petroleum background in the gas sector when we took over, in order to quickly build capacity to perform adequate monitoring and oversight of the oil and gas operation. With a $1 million from the IDB, Mr. Speaker, we have got with $1 million from the IDB. We had a World Bank development plan, a plan to build a 36-member oil and gas unit, highly specialized skills and experience for 24/7 on-site presence, Mr. Speaker, on the drill ship and the FPSOs, to obtain credible and real-time information. When the government took office, they abandoned that plan and denied that it ever existed until the plan surfaced in the newspaper and caught them with their pants down, Mr. Speaker. Forcing the minister to defer question to the EPA directors, whose excuse was that he didn't know the plan existed since he was there. Mr. Speaker, to suggest that this didn't know of such an important and critical World Bank plan existed confirms the incompetency and the incapability to manage this important sector and their continued wasting of the World Bank's money. Even though they have been caught red-handed about 1 year ago, they still have not done anything to implement the plan to ensure there's a 24/7 on-site presence, Mr. Speaker. Additionally, Mr. Speaker, the coalition established a study leave program to build capacity where the EPA was to sponsor students to go to university and train and sign a 4-year contract to serve afterwards. But all these were abandoned, Mr. Speaker, abandoned. They told those students who had already applied to university and prepared to go that the program was abandoned and they are on their own. Mr. Speaker, every major project or business's development must go through this institution. And it's shocking to learn that they don't have monies to pay staff for this month, Mr. Speaker. Very shocking. This institution is very important to the newly discovered oil resources, with the upscale production in the Stabroek Block and many others to come. Guyana must guard against environmental hazards such as oil spill, flaring, and the dumping of toxic water into the ocean. These are 3 major issues that Guyanese should be concerned with, and the EPA should equip itself to manage these, Mr. Speaker. Let us turn our attention to the flaring. Mr. Speaker, Liza Phase 1 in 2021 flared over 1 billion cubic feet of gas, of a faulty compressor which is said was fixed, but flaring continues to no direct penalty, Mr. Speaker. We must understand that flaring releases over 250 identified toxic, including carcinogens such as the benzene, carbon disulfide, and toluene, metals such as mercury, Mr. Speaker, mercury, arsenic, and chromium, hydrogen sulfide. These are all toxic gases, Mr. Speaker. We learned that the US $10 million were paid to EPA, sir. This is a green light to flare. What we now have, Mr. Speaker, is a government, aka pay to pollute or no EIA government. That is what we have now, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have now. Demerara Harbor Bridge, no EIA required. The EPA published notice in the late 20s that the bridge would require an EIA, only to have it overturned by the politician in early 2021 against the EPA decision for an EIA to be done, Mr. Speaker. As soon as the coalition government was out of power, a close associate of the government cleared a huge plantation of mangrove forests at Wheeling-Hoop. You were there, Mr. Camarade. With a no EIA, not even an application to the EPA. And they cut down the mangroves, Mr. Speaker. I recall, Mr. Speaker, senior government official making statements that to pollute Guyana is the cost to develop Guyana. This is callous and irresponsible, Mr. Speaker. They know themselves, Mr. Speaker. In this disregard for the law by the government, why are they losing these lawsuits like the one just recently lost when they did not do an EIA for the radioactive storage on the east bank of Demerara, and shows clearly that the government values money over people's health, safety, and the environment. As I said, Mr. Speaker, this is a no EIA pay to pollute government. Dumping of the toxic water waste into the ocean, Mr. Speaker. That is the same. That is, as I speak about the three important aspects, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the dumping of produced water is strictly prohibited in all parts of the world and prescribed by the World Bank. This had to do with highly toxic heavy metal, Mr. Speaker, radioactive materials, hot water 3 times more than the ocean water. This produced water also contains oil inside. And if we continue to dump this produced water with a rapid pace of oil production and development, then we will be dumping hundreds of thousands of barrels of pure oil in the ocean, Mr. Speaker. I don't know, Mr. Speaker, there was a popular video that was circulating by a fisherman that shows the oil was floating in the water, but that in terms that die. Mr. Speaker, the World Bank report says dumping of the produced water is prohibited unless it is not financially or technically feasible. But in this case, Mr. Speaker, it is easily feasible, both financially and technically, since normal international best practices call for it to be reinjected back into the reservoir with standard technology to maintain reservoir pressure, Mr. Speaker. But Guyana, they are injecting clean waters from the ocean while dumping the toxic into the water. How could that make a godly sense, Mr. Speaker? Except if it's only for greed and putting money above people's health and the environment, Mr. Speaker. Only the no EIA pay to pollute PPC government would allow this, Mr. Speaker. After the election, they brought a highly controversial consultant from Canada to expedite the issuing of the permit from the Payara project. The team, which was led by Ms. Redford and comprised of the EPA, GGMC, and the Department of Energy, unanimously arrived at the decision that there shall be no dumping of produced water nor flaring of gas. The team met with Exxon, so directed that they installed equipment to do so. However, the PPPC government disregarded that decision and now allows the unlimited dumping of the produced toxic water and unlimited flaring of the toxic gases as long as they could pay for it. That's right. Pollute as much as you want, as long as you can pay for it. The pay to pollute government, Mr. Speaker. That is what we have. Mr. Speaker, there has been an outcry from the media and public for government to release the Alison Redford report. We now ask again, Mr. Speaker, where is the Alison Redford report and why are they hiding it, Mr. Speaker? The only conclusion could be that they do not want the public to know that they went against their own foreign consultant and government agencies to the health and environment detriment of our people and the nation are supposed to be protecting. Show us the Alison Redford report, Mr. Speaker. Show us where it is. Oil spill, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, with the rapid rate of development in the oil and gas sector, one has to prepare for any mishap that we see to other parts of the world. All the monies earned now can be gone in a split of a second, Mr. Speaker. In a split of a second. We further plunge the country into bankruptcy, more heavy debt than the current and future generation will pay heavy price for that. That is poverty, Mr. Speaker. Poverty.
You will need an extension, honourable member, to conclude.
Comrade Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to continue his presentation. Conclude his presentation, sir.
Thank you, Honourable Chief Whip. Honourable member, you may continue towards your conclusion.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Worldwide offshore production operation like Guyana shows a high likelihood of an oil spill occurring offshore. That such likelihood of a spill increases exponentially with the rapid increase of offshore production activities and the reckless conduct of Exxon with approval from the government to produce a rate of 25% above the safe operating limit defined in the EIA, Mr. Speaker. That is what they're doing, 25% above the limit. Putting the country at a high risk for a spill. And sir, if you look at the emergency response and clean up of the British Petroleum in Macondo oil spill in the Gulf of Mexico have cost them $145 billion. I'm coming down to the figure just now, Mr. Speaker. $145 billion US. The government is now talking about bringing able to see oil spill remotely. When more importantly, we should have a 24/7 on board oversight to prevent the spill. It is useless and too late. Too late when you see the spill, Mr. Speaker. We call on the government to implement the World Bank 36-member program of highly personnel to provide the capacity to prevent the spill in the first place by on-site rigorous oversight, Mr. Speaker. Full coverage liability insurance, Mr. Speaker. This is where the issue is, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, the topic seems to be a secret from Guyanese people at large. If by chance any of the disaster occurred that I previously mentioned here, Guyana and the rest of the Caribbean are doomed. And that is the doom, madam. That is the doom, honorable member. It will forever remain as it is. The coalition demanded and got Exxon to agree to have a full liability coverage to cover any size spill. Full liability coverage consists of an insurance plus a parent company guaranteeing, Mr. Speaker. It's a difference. It's a difference, Mr. Speaker. The parent company is running. Full liability coverage consists of insurance plus parent company guarantee that covers all costs above the insurance. It's simple formula, sir. Full coverage is equal to insurance plus parent company guaranteeing. That is what full coverage is, Mr. Speaker, not halfway. Mr. Speaker, that is what enshrined in the permits, and that is what is being negligibly allowed to be violated by this government. But like everything else, Mr. Speaker, it is the modus operandi of the government not to follow the rules of law. Like civilized and democratic countries would do, sadly, we now live in an autocracy, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, in last year's debate, we heard some ministers saying that parent company guarantee was too costly. So, Mr. Speaker, please give me the honor to educate my honorable colleagues on the other side. A parent company guarantee costs nothing, nada. Nada, Mr. Speaker. It's just a document that is signed by the ExxonMobil, not the EPGL, Mr. Speaker. Nada. This language of full liability coverage, Mr. Speaker, which was created by the coalition, was put in the LISA 2 permit by the coalition and now copied by the PPC government and all other permits issued by the PPC. The VP himself verified this on the Glenn Nash Show, Mr. Program. If you remember, he went on his phone and he quoted the section, Mr. Speaker, with the language. However, the government is allowing Exxon to operate without this parent company guaranteeing. and with only $600 million in insurance, with the parent company guaranteeing that costs nothing, Mr. Speaker. $600 million is useless. Mr. Speaker, the Macondo spill I referred to earlier costs $145 billion US. So if you have a Macondo type spill here, who will cover the $144.4 billion? Who will cover it, Mr. Speaker? Above the $600 million insurance, which is merely 3% of that. That's just a typical example, Mr. Speaker. To put it another way, Mr. Speaker, the Macondo spill costed close to 250 times the $600 million that they're talking about here, Mr. Speaker. 250 times. And it's 50 times more of the entire budget here we're talking about, Mr. You can understand the devastation what can happen here. Mr. Speaker, therefore, there is a mystery still to anyone in this assembly as to why Guyana, many of its neighbors, would be financially bankrupt with the destruction of our fishing industry, tourism, and ecology. Mr. Speaker, I am not making this up. It is all in the EIAs. It will wipe out the Caribbean, tourism, and many others. Further, Mr. Speaker, even though the guarantee is zero cost, the government is now appeasing EEPGL. We're talking about cutting the legal requirements full, unlimited guarantee of $2 billion. $2 billion, Mr. Speaker. Again, who will cover the $143 billion US if we to have the Macondo spill here? Above the insurance among with a parent company guaranteeing of only $2 billion. Mr. Speaker, let me ask my learned colleagues on the other side, since I know that they all have some common sense. Here's my simple question, Mr. Speaker. Why won't Exxon want to sign a legal required guarantee that costs nothing, especially since the pledge that they will never walk away from any such responsibility? Well, Mr. Speaker, a simple question brings a simple answer. And the first simple answer is that the fact that because they are being allowed to get away with the lawlessness and the callousness by our reckless government that doesn't respect our own laws. But the real reason, Mr. Speaker, is that Exxon would have no liability above $600 million insurance. Our walk away would get costly. Think about it, Mr. Speaker. How else would this be explained if the pledge that they wouldn't walk away? Why can't they put the pledge in the writing if not costs nothing, Mr. Speaker? Why can't they do that? Mr. Speaker, now my time is running out, and I am going. Mr. Speaker, let me talk about the Gas Ashore project, Mr. Speaker.
Unfortunately, we are already a minute over the extension.
Mr. Speaker, permit me to conclude, Mr. Speaker. Permit me to conclude, Mr. Speaker. My expectation that I wanted to see for the development of our environmental in Guyana, Mr. Speaker. Implement the World Bank plan that I spoke about, providing for the 36-member unit a highly specialized oil and gas unit, and the EPA, the rovers oversight and monitoring, including 24/7 on the ship presence, Mr. Speaker. The talk about now being able to oil spill remotely, Mr. Speaker, when more importantly, we should have 24/7 on board oversight to prevent spill. It's too late when you see the spill, Mr. Speaker. It's too late. It is better you do it before. Preventative is always better than. Mr. Speaker, I know my time is up, and I really wish I could have continued in this regard. But Mr. Speaker, I've spoke so much about the environmental issues that we have in Guyana here, and they were not mentioned in the budget, and therefore is unable to me to support such a budget. Agency and institute in Guyana, Mr. Speaker. I thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. And now for the Honorable Member, Dr. Vishwa Mahadia.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, let me start by saying, first of all, congratulations to our Vice President and to Minister Ramson on their birthday. And a particular congratulations to the Vice President because he played a major role in getting us where we are today. Over the dark period of the
and all of those things that we've been talking about in terms of the things we have to look at, right? The flaring and all of these environmental impact assessment EIAs that are supposed to be done were not done by this government, putting their interests at we don't know whether or not it's their friends and the family interests and favorites interests before the environment. So we'll talk to Ricky in just a few.
And I mean, before we came back, we also had the speech of our chief whip, Christopher Jones, that we didn't get to speak about. Another powerful presentation as well, where he basically zoomed in on the issue of good governance and governance generally, and what should be expected, you know, pointing out things that we had no cabinet update since this government has come into power.
Well, we've had cabinet debates, and they're
cabinet updates.
Listen,
I won't call that.
Let me frame it for you. I'm not denying what you're saying, but I'm calling it differently. We've had cabinet updates, right? They're called Jack Deal press conferences, right? Because he is the cabinet.
Apparently.
So when Jack Deal says, "Hey, we decided this," it means that he decided on it, and he would have told these people this is what to do. So this is why you don't see a post-cabinet press conference like we are accustomed to. Well, you know, cabinet met and we have decided on these key issues, and this is how we'll be moving forward in the next few months. These are the major projects that we have agreed on. We have agreed to buy 2 airplanes from India, right? No, but the president, how they do it is the president he said we buy 2 airplanes. No cabinet decision.
Because the president apparently, when it comes to Guyana's wealth, our money, the people's money, it's almost as if he's going shopping with it. So he was walking through the street and he said, look at that, there's a nice airplane. I should buy them. Guess what? We carry no one home there, right?
Yes.
No sort of information, no procurement system, no flow to this. It's just, you know, we're gonna do this. And in fact, an agreement of when you'll pay it to very quickly. You know,
and that's what you have. You have Jack Deal coming every once in a while. He would have said that he doesn't go to cabinet meeting. I don't know whether or not they have cabinet meetings. That is given the ad hoc nature that we see things happening. This is everybody is operating in their own silos, and as we'll talk about that, I will continue to press on some issues in terms of connection and cooperation between ministries. I would have pointed out that, look, the Ministry of Education and the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, very key cooperation, set of cooperation needs to happen there, because what happens is that our student athletes are completely left in the gray area because there's nobody taking care of the school grounds. As the Ministry of Culture, Youth and Sport, as a Minister of Culture, Youth and Sport, these are things that you should be concerning yourself with. Ministry of Education, they send people to weed the school and school ground once every 3 more, 3 times a term. And so there's no coordination. And I was speaking to a sports official the other day. You know, as we're talking about things coming out of the budget, we're not seeing those programs. He said that, look, they want to do they want to implement this training program with student athletes that are still in school. And the person suggested that, look, maybe we should involve the Ministry of Education in this, right? And The Minister of Culture, Youth and Sports said, no. Don't worry, the Ministry of Education. That in itself says to you that, look, these people don't even come. It's as if they're in some sort of competition.
Correct.
Right? You know, the word on the street is that both Priya and Ramson want to be next presidential candidates. So
It's a fight.
we're going to talk more about sports,
yes, because
sports and governance.
The chief whip would have as well, outside of governance, he dealt a lot with youth sports and culture, making some beautiful points and even reminding us of the first times for our country under the coalition government. So we'll talk to him now. Welcome.
Yes, we can't talk to him because we
sorry.
Yes, we bring in in just a second. We bring in the chief whip to discuss with us some of the things that he would have outlined in his presentation. And he spoke. We said something about the different.
He talked a lot about the things that we would have done as a coalition government in regards to facilities regarding sports. Well, he talked about the money spent on the Cliff Anderson Sports Complex, and a lot of issues
and
in
reminding
that regard
people about the achievements
of the coalition,
especially in sports.
Yes, and particularly he talked about, and I think there was a very loose comment inside the Doom as well when they spoke. He spoke about the first time I think it was the blind cricket team was able to travel and represent Guyana.
Yeah.
So we'll definitely have quite a few things to discuss with him as he would. That presentation was it was a really good presentation. I'll get when we speak to him. There is the high point of that presentation. I surely want to speak about.
I want to welcome in now the Chief Whip, MP Christopher Jones, to our program. MP, welcome.
Good evening. Thank you.
Right. You so many things, and we would have heard throughout the day as the opposition takes the budget apart and highlights to the Guyanese people the failings and inadequacies of this budget. And as we show where the government is really spending their monies. You dealt with governance and sport specifically. On governance, let's deal with that first. What is the grade that you give this government for 2022?
Zero.
We went from with F. We got to zero.
Zero. Yeah, I mean, listen, because the PPP is always high on their propaganda. But the reality is on the ground. And when you speak about good governance, you speak about all that I've articulated there, and those are completely absent. For example, there has been no meaningful engagement or any engagement with the leader of the opposition.
Yes.
The parliamentary opposition members of parliament, Article 13 of Ghana's constitution states that you have a right to be engaged in the putting together of the budget and many other aspects of Ghana. There has never, for the past 4 budget that has been presented by the People's Progressive Party Civic, there has been no consultation whatsoever with the opposition on the budget. And that's why we drive home the point that there's no good governance in the country.
Definitely.
In terms of that consultation, it was a point when this government was installed in 2020. I listened to Gail Teixeira talk about it and try and defend this idea of inclusion, especially on state boards and things, and they try to blame it on the fact that the opposition has not recognized them and saying, and they said, oh, you're a legal installed government, and this is why they have not. How do you respond to that?
But simply, the People's Progressive Party Civic is an illegal and installed administration. That is the reality. Whenever the courts will make that ruling, and then we'll take it from there. Gail Teixeira does what Gail Teixeira does best. Sits in a fancy air-conditioned room with a fancy dress on, and she pontificates about inclusionary, how the government consults with the private sector, they consult with Guyanese and so forth, and there's nothing of that sort on the ground. And that is the reality.
And we've definitely been hearing a lot of that, as every MP would have talked in the speech. There is the lack of consultation.
Correct. As I mentioned before, this is the fourth budget being presented, and the opposition has never been invited for consultation. And I want to just take your viewers back to under the APNU AFC government. On every single budget preparation, the People's Progressive Party Civic was invited to participate in the budget, to make their submission. The first year that they were invited, they came and they went back with a view of submitting the recommendation. Those submissions never came. The following year and the years preceding that, they were invited again for budget consultation, and they never turned up.
All right. You also made a point in terms of governance, where you talked about, the issue of not bringing to the public in terms of cabinet, that we knew, you had these cabinet briefings, etc. We just talked a little about it. I mean, let's hear you on that.
Yeah, no, exactly. So in every society where there is good governance, there is communication with the citizenry. In the event that there is a decision which is taken at cabinet, and mind you, there is a cabinet meeting every week. There is a post-cabinet briefing in which either the president or the cabinet secretary is at that press conference, and they share with the Guyanese people what are the major contracts that the government has just engaged the country's coffers in. Who were the contractors, how the bid would have been tendered, who the persons or how many persons, that sort of thing. And
who you buying the 2 planes from?
There you go, and open up themselves, open up government for the reporters to ask searching questions. And that is what you talk about, good governance and transparency and accountability, because you have to answer. I saw last week the president in a ad hoc press conferences with his friends and family at the head table. And essentially this was in response to what the leader of the opposition said the day before, that the budget is for friends, family, and favorites. The following day, the president had a press conference with friends, family, and his favorite. And at that press conference, he admitted, these are my friends. And he said exactly what we have been saying, that his friends, family, and favorites. But at that press conference, what stood out to me is the several reporters, I can't remember the name or the media house that they represent, but they were asking searching question of the president. And you would think that here it is, it's a 6-year-old child in a sweetie factory and just behaving erratic. Right throughout. It's unpresidential. And this is what essentially that the reporters or Guyana as a whole become accustomed to hearing from Irfan Ali. You ask him, how is the moon? You get views. It's a views and shutdown. And he has that sort of behavior from his predecessor, well, far back, which Barra Jagdeo. But he is even worse. But so it doesn't allow for those searching questions to be asked, and he, as head of state, providing the answer. You would get the impression that the funds for these projects is coming out of the pocket of Irfan Ali or the Irfan Ali family. So therefore, he could behave in any way that he so chooses, and not realizing that you are spending monies from the public's coffers, and therefore you have to answer the questions. It's not a case that you feel to answer, or you don't feel, or you don't answer, whatever. You have to answer those questions. And because in many cases we realize he just cannot answer the questions. He just cannot. And if you lack the ability to answer those questions, then have your technical people sitting alongside you, and you refer those questions to them.
Friends, family, and favorites.
Exactly.
Yes, definitely.
I took note of the time you took in your budget presentation to highlight and remind the people of Guyana about the achievements that we had in sport. I know that you were a former director of sport, and so you would know intimately the happenings in sport from 2015. I want you to kind of lay that out, because it's important for us to remind people. Look, the history of this country didn't start in 2020.
So make it make sense, eh?
Yeah.
Make it make sense.
Yes, exactly. No, you are absolutely correct, and and you are correct in terms of us having and should constantly be reminding people of what was achieved under the APNU AFC administration. It is critical because pre 2015, you got the impression that the Cooperative Republic of Guyana began in 1992 when the PPP came to office, and nothing before that was relevant.
Yeah.
Now the PPP in its new propaganda, and if you listen to Ashley Singh's presentation, essentially he is saying that absolutely nothing happened from 2015 to 2020 as it relates to health, education, sports, infrastructure, security, you name it, absolutely nothing in his budget. And then at the same time, you will see, mark my words, I'm calling it now, you will see on Friday when Ashley Singh does his wrap up, he will make mention the fact that all of the MPs on the opposition side, when they spoke nothing about what is going to be achieved out of the budget. And he himself did exactly that with an entire 5 year of a government that nothing happened. He stated as it relates to sports that on their assumption of office, that they found that many of the facilities across the country was in a state of disrepair. And as well as a result of that, it's no secret as to why Guyana could not have a substantial number of athletes representing the country regionally and internationally, which is completely contrary. When we took over the responsibility of sports in this country, the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall, we had to do some major renovation to the point that when you go to the washrooms, in order for you to flush, you had to push your hands through a concrete wall to pull the plunger. And apparently my predecessor, Neil Kumar, they built it that way to prevent people from damaging the facility. You talk about rotten boards, falling ceiling, and you name it. We did a complete renovation of that facility in order for Guyana to successfully host the CBC Under-16 Championships.
Yeah.
You go to the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall now, you will find a washroom with granite countertops and marble wash face sinks in both the male and female with a complete separation of the two. We purchased the FIBA approved basketball goals, as well as the FIBA approved shot clocks. So as it stands now, the Cliff Anderson Sports Hall, as a result of what we did, is now a FIBA approved facility that can host any of those regional or international tournaments. And that's just to name a few. If you go right now, and I ask your viewers to do this, you go to the gymnasium on Mandela, you will observe that there is a white concrete fence that was built under the coalition government. The entire space behind that is for parking, because under the tenure we had a difficulty. There was no parking space. That people used to be parking on the road, which created a traffic congestion. That entire space, the last thing left for them to do now is asphalt it. We built the lawn tennis court that you see there right now at the gymnasium. We built a small goal football turf right there at the gymnasium to facilitate. And the reason why too we constructed the lawn tennis court at the gymnasium is that if you look at where the sports facilities are, you would find a lawn tennis court only is located in North Georgetown, which puts South Georgetown, which is the largest population block of this country, at a disadvantage. And that is why that was built. I was making the point to a reporter recently as to why it is important, the construction of the Dorban Park facility. As a result of the very same thing, the people of South Georgetown, which again is the largest population block of the country, has no such major facility. If you noted, just when that facility was constructed, the large number of Guyanese during the mornings and during the afternoon hours going there to exercise. You see people they learn to drive around there. You saw dance group and so forth. Is that the facility became alive because of South Georgetown not having that sort of recreational space for them. But the People's Progressive Party Civic doesn't see it that way.
And I'm happy that you brought that up. You and I share a similar interest in sport. And on my show last night, I mentioned something. I want to bring it up again. You can't be so vindictive. You can't be so petty as to leave the thing to fall down. And we're talking about Durban Park here, folks.
Yeah.
Now, I even suggested, I said, oh, Ramson, go now, salvage what you could salvage from the stands, even if you don't want to use the facility anymore because it's Granger legacy.
Right.
Take the stands, what can be taken from there, what can be saved, and put those stands at community grounds.
Correct.
Do something for those. You know how many community grounds would love to have those.
Correct.
And it is a height of pettiness and vindictiveness, and I think that will be the legacy of this Minister of Culture and Sport, to leave that there.
Correct.
I mean, you said it. Even without the PPP's intervention, that facility took on a life of its own.
That's right.
Yeah.
It was buzzing
That's
with
right.
activity on
Yes.
every afternoon.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it says that there's a need for it.
Correct. We were in the process at the Sports Commission and the Sports Ministry of installing these high security huts,
Yeah.
where security personnel could have been way at the top there with these beam lights and so forth. Even the small golf carts that the security persons could have been driving around, securing the perimeter and so forth. All of that is left to waste.
Yeah.
And you ask yourself, it is not Granger's money. It is not the AP and UAFC money. It's the taxpayers of the country.
Yeah.
And that is why I say you have to judge the People's Progressive Party Civic on these, as you rightfully mentioned, these wicked and vindictive type behaviors.
Yeah.
Person can listen. The people of New Amsterdam and Rossignol, or Region 5 and 6, benefited from the AP and UAFC putting in place 2 boats to ferry students back and forth. The People's Progressive Party Civic has docked those 2 boats at the New Amsterdam Stelling. It is there, and currently they're rotting.
I think the speaker that was on the floor is just about wrapped up.
Yeah. But let's wrap up here with Chris. And so the sport has gotten $4.7 billion this year.
Yeah.
They got $3.2 billion last year.
Yeah.
What are your hopes for this 4 point? Because I don't think that people saw what the benefit of that 3.2 was.
No.
We don't see where that went.
We don't see.
What are your hopes for this 4.7 billion this year?
Right. So the hopes is that the 2 synthetic track, which was built by the AP and UAFC in Region 6 and 10, are completed. That they purchased the pavilions and they put in the necessary infrastructure so the youngsters in those respective regions can start using them. We hope that they use that money for the completion of the works at the National Gymnasium, which started under us, and the parking space is asphalted. We hope that they use those monies to put a shed over at the National Aquatic Center. There is the eastern shed, the eastern pavilion that is without a shed. We put those requests in since before we left office. We hope that those monies now are going to be used to complete that. As well too, we hope that they start back, I have to say start back, giving the federations and the associations the monies that they request, because that too has been absent under this
I'm
present
going to
administration.
crave the indulgence for 1 second as I see our MP is stepping up on the stand for us to close off with our Chief Whip
Yes.
on that statement and the quote that you made from the late Dr. Chetty Jagan.
And that is true. Dr. Chetty Jagan said that you cannot want to live a Cadillac lifestyle in a donkey cart economy. Now that Guyana is an oil producing nation with $781.9 billion as a budget, almost $1 trillion, and only 1.7% of that money is going to the people of Guyana, it is a clear indication that Guyana now has a Cadillac economy. But it is the People's Progressive Party Civic who has the Guyanese people living a donkey cart lifestyle.
On that note, folks, we
Thank
will
you so
definitely
much.
thank the Chief Whip for coming and sharing his thoughts with us post-budget debate presentation. I will take you back to the floor of the House where MP Natasha Singh Lewis, Shadow Minister of Education, is on the floor. We'll take you there now.
Nice. We'll see you then.
I would have expected, some level of maturity from that member. He's a doctor. He's been in this house for a while. He's been in the political arena for a while. I am so disappointed. Frank, don't get involved. Mr. Speaker, not my clown, not my circus. I rise today to add my contribution to the 2023 budget by thanking God Almighty for life and His mercies. Gratefulness is an innate behavior of mankind, all of us. And so while I thank Him for strength and mental wellness to serve the people of our dear land, I also want to thank the many public servants who would have spent a lot of time and energy in preparing this budget. Mr. Speaker, it is disappointing to come here again for the fourth time in less than 2.5 years to talk about the biggest budget in the history of our country, while the poor people are suffering, while poor people's homes are being bulldozed right in front of the eyes of our innocent children, while children in the Rupununi are sleeping on bare sponge on the ground in their dorms, while parents can hardly feed their children, but the ministers of government are taking home more than $1.3 million every single month. It is a sad day for all of us in Guyana when we have to come here just for due process to be observed so that the PPPC can continue to fill the pockets of their friends, families, and favorites. Mr. Speaker, the actions of this debate is so routine and mundane that the only important aspect for us is to ensure that our contributions in the form of recommendations from these speeches are captured in the Hansard and that it will be part of our history. I am fearful that history will judge us as a country harshly because the manner in which the business of this country is being done is horrifying. This budget lacks any discernible strategy to eliminate poverty. It lacks both hope and a model that promises development of our human capital. I'm definitely very disappointed. This PPPC installed administration can only be described as heartless. The percentage of people living under poverty is getting higher, and there's little or no priority on supporting programs to highlight the village economy or creating work for the unemployed. And please don't tell me about the part-time jobs for $40,000 per month. Is that the PPPC employment mechanism? Sir, that is a demonstration of the level of disrespect they have for our Guyanese people. That is a handout without thinking about the future of our people. Our people is who will determine where we go. Is this how we are improving the lives of our people today? With part-time jobs, sir? Per month part-time jobs? Our prosperity tomorrow is doomed under this installed government. Mr. Speaker, there are people in Region 6 who benefited from the $40,000 temporary jobs. And you know, I've been going to Region 6 a lot. And one day we were midway on the quarantine and we stopped at Liverpool and I met Charmaine. Charmaine is a single parent who is from Liverpool, who has 4 children, Unfortunately, she was employed and placed to do gardening at the health center in the village there. Sir, $40,000 cannot feed her and her 4 children. And so I took the opportunity to recommend to Charmaine, I encourage her to go and apply to the region for public assistance for the 4 children, since they are all in nursery and primary schools. Sir, during the Christmas time of 2022, she was notified that because she was employed, she cannot receive public assistance. Sir, that is the prosperity of our people. Now we understand why the people in the Ministry of Human Services do not want the current minister that they have. That's the kind of policy that is in place. Mr. Speaker, this budget is disappointing and serves as a signal of doom for the working class and the poor and all of Guyana, except the friends, family, and favorites. Sir, these people sit in government on stolen votes. Fraud is all they know. And so looking at measures to reduce poverty, it will be a difficult task for them. But nevertheless, sir, I'm an optimist. And so days leading up to the budget presentation, I was thinking that we will see more money because of the access of oil revenue. I will see, and I honestly believe that I was so naive to believe that I'll see a vision which will translate to the promotion of equal access to education, creating real employment opportunities for our people, and at this point, a real policy for the reduction of poverty in this country. Sir, after 2 years and 4 budgets, people are poorer in this country. Cost of living is beyond what they can afford to survive. Sir, giving people cash grant is a good thing, and giving them the uniform allowance and so on is a good thing, but it's not sufficient. It's not sufficient. Sir, giving people cash grant is a good thing, and I do believe, given our reality of COVID-19. But sir, the worrisome thing about cash grants is the discriminatory manner in which it is distributed. Whether it was the COVID cash grant or the flood relief for the farmers or the cash grant for the fisher folks, only the people who are covered by the One Guyana slogan can benefit. Is that how we are improving the lives of our people today? Sir, a matter was reported to me while I was in my constituency, and I investigated it. West Berbice, Guy Suku employee received the Fisher Folk cash grant. Sir, how is that possible? What was the criteria for the Fisher Folk cash grant? And how did a Guy Suku employee end up with a Fisher Folk cash grant? Sir, I am awaiting the full report. Yes, Adil. I am awaiting the full report, and I shall make it public. The details of that report, I shall make it public. Sir, cash grants, like I said, is a good thing. It is a good thing as a short-term relief measure, but it's not an indication of a long-term solution for poverty. It is not. It is not a long-term solution for poverty reduction. Mr. Speaker, I thought I would have seen by now some of the more concrete measures and the relevant indicators for reduction of inequality in this country. None was forthcoming, and that's me just being naive. Sir, more importantly than all of that, I was looking forward for any strategy or policy that aims at promoting political inclusion. So these are the parameters to a safe and prosperous Guyana. Political inclusion, reduction of inequalities, poverty reduction, among others. Mr. Speaker, this budget, I must say, is visionless. What are the indicators in this budget that suggest that at some point, while being an oil-producing nation, we will be a unified Guyana, where all of our diversities, given that we are multi-ethnic, multicultural, where all of our diversities are embraced, where equity is promoted, and decision-making processes at all levels, including the political level, results in equal opportunities and benefits for all of Guyana. Let me repeat so that we can visualize what prosperity means, Mr. Speaker. So let me state what vision means for a prosperous Guyana. A unified Guyana where all of our diversities are embraced, where equity promoted and decision-making processes at all levels, including the political level, results in equal opportunity for all Guyanese. Sir, the people who are promoting One Guyana can use that as a vision for Guyana instead of the current slogan. You can actually take out action points from that vision and achieve tolerance and cohesion in this country. Mr. Speaker, we on this side of the House have been articulating to the international community and the world at large that what we are expecting and we're experiencing as One Guyana, what actually we're experiencing, Mr. Speaker? Divide and rule, allocate the resources to friends, family, and favorites, while lawlessness returns and crime is spiraling out of control. Sir, every week, women are being killed. The number of children suffering and not being reached by the current system. And in each region, the cases are overwhelming. Sir, in Region 3, for example, Region 3 and 6, the cases of school-age girls who have been sexually assaulted and raped has increased significantly. Is this how we are improving the lives of our people, sir? How could we use words such as prosperous to describe this budget? How, Mr. Speaker? I know the 10% who are friends, family, and favorites will become prosperous, and the 90% of us will remain in poverty. That is so unfair. And you know, Mr. Speaker, in all of this, it is the children who suffers the most when things like this happen. I'm deeply concerned about the state of our education system and its impact on the future of our children. The policy shift in the direction does not position us as a country well at this time, especially since we are battling the effects of COVID-19 on us all, particularly our students, teachers in the classroom, and of course, the educators in the departments in the regions, standing strong to hold the system together. And I really want to pause to thank those education officers in all of the regions who I have noticed in the public domain, they have been under attack by teachers, whether it's justified or not. You know, I've worked with some of them, and I know how difficult it is to hold it together in the department when things are escalating in the schools. Mr. Speaker, we in this House must hold this installed government accountable for the direction in which this sector is heading. There are too many heads, and the education train is speeding away, downward spiraling, and out of control in its direction, while very little is being done to salvage the situation. Let me explain, Mr. Speaker. In this House a few days ago, Honorable Dr. Ashley Singh, who presented the budget, said that an education system that delivers a modern model, an adaptive learning experience is an imperative to realizing His Excellency's vision of a world-class education for all. Improved access, quality, and relevance are essential to raising Guyana's human capital to the levels needed to advance and sustain the eminent transformative economic and social development. He said that, end of quote. Mr. Speaker, that is excellent. I think that's an excellent goal on paper. But hear me out, because I want to demonstrate that what I would have said earlier, and that is, I'm deeply concerned about the state of education and its vision going forward. Sir, the differing views on the long-term goals pose great problems for Guyana because of the weak leadership that cannot transform this sector or this nation. Sir, while Dr. Singh mentioned the President's vision for world-class education, he did not give us the full statement of His Excellency. He omitted, deleted, lied to us when he did that. Sir, I recall...
You're saying the Honorable Minister lied to us? Honorable members, we got to, for the first day of the debate with all of these words, and we have to stop it, or I'll interject time and time again. Go ahead, Honorable Member.
Thank you, sir. I don't mind you interjecting, sir. I don't mind.
But if you continue to abuse the standing order, I'll stop you.
That's all right.
Okay.
Sir, the differing views on the long-term goal poses great problem. The Honorable Minister of Finance was being untruthful to this House when he made that statement. Sir, I recall that while the President was at the 77th United Nations General Assembly last year, I remembered he made a statement. But let me tell you what a DPI report dated September 20th, 2022 stated. It says, while President Ali delivered remarks as the chair of the Transforming Education Summit, the head of state stated that as part of Ghana's effort to strengthen the education system, his government plans to increase its expenditure by 20%. This, he said, was necessary due to the implications of the pandemic on the education system. Sir, this was September 2022, just around the time when they would have completed the half-year review of the sector, and about the same time Budget 2023 preparations was being done. Lo and behold, we are here today faced with a budget for the sector that is only $94.4 billion, which is approximately only 12% when His Excellency promised the United Nations 20%. Mr. Speaker, is this incompetence, blatant untruths, disrespect?
Okay. Disrespect is one here we got in the right, and the continued reference to His Excellency allowed your making comment with respect to what was quoted. That was fair, but now you are interpreting and giving an opinion of the president to influence the debate. I wouldn't allow that. Okay. I wouldn't allow that. And I was waiting to hear the time frame of this 20% increase. If it was promised within a... Yes. Go ahead now.
I'm sorry, his statement didn't give a time frame, sir.
Yeah, so it's hard to call untruth, disrespectful, and things like that. Go ahead.
Sir, I will just say that this is the level of incompetency that we have here. Sir, my own thought of the statement that was made at the UN Assembly. The fact that we have a budget which is 8% less of what was promised or stated. Sir, for me, my own thought, that is a reflection of the infighting that is not recorded, that is not placed on Facebook, but it is the PPP power struggle and the infighting manifesting itself into government's business. 12% of this budget, sir, it begs the question, what exactly is the vision for education? When you can allocate that miserly sum to the sector, that is the main vein of our country. Sir, at this point in time, I would like to remind the Minister of Education of her own words in this House in her last budget presentation. She said, and please guide me here, sir, because I want to quote, this is a quote from the Hansard, what the Minister of Education said. She said, "Do not hoodwink, mislead, and be dishonest with the people who are looking to you for leadership." End of quote. Today, I wish to return those same sentiments to this installed government and to advise them to be truthful. Tell the people that the government has no clue on how to transform education and that nepotism is one of the gears swaying the education train out of control. Sir, all of us in this House should be held accountable and must never seek to deceive the nation. Mr. Speaker, I concur that 2023 education budget allocation should have been 20% of the national budget, so as to create the change necessary to continue the transformation of education in this country. Sir, what is the vision of this country? And I keep going back to the vision because we only been hearing about one guy and we have not heard what that translates to. And so I keep asking, what is the vision for this country? What should we expect as a nation by 2025? Mr. Speaker, we didn't have to go very, very far to research economic development for this sector or for our country. If only we had done a little bit of research, we'd found that the Caribbean Community Strategic Plan, they would have recognized that the human resource development is vital for our social and economic prosperity, regional integration, building resilience, and sustainable development. So this plan could have contributed to sincerely addressing our human resources development in this country, and it's available for all of us to have. Sir, the unwillingness of this government to go above and beyond to address sincerely the development of our human resource should be a crime. Mr. Speaker, allow me to focus on what's happening across the education sector. Sir, let me tell you what their own budget said to us in the last 2 years. One, the 2022 goals for students scoring 50% or more at NGSA was not met. Two, in fact, the percentage of students scoring 50% or more at NGSA fell from 30% in 2021 to 28% in 2022, even though they were aiming for 50% as their target in 2022. Sir, where is the value for money? In almost every area of performance in primary education, and to some extent secondary education, the percentage fell. They did not meet their targets. Similarly, the percentage of students with passes from grades 1 to 3 for 5 subjects, including math and English, only grew by 2%, from 30% to 32% when the target was 52%. This reality, sir, this CXC reality, is clouded and hidden by just a few students who managed to write 20 and more subjects at CSEC. This is so because the media debate is then taken over by how many subjects students should write, and when the real issue is the hundreds of students not passing math and English at grades 1 and 3. In my opinion, sir, that should have been the debate rather than people who are writing 20 subjects and more. Sir, let us note that the budget was a large one last year, but the change in results was minimal, and that is cause for concern. If we look at the matrices on our performance in 2029, that is the APNU AFC 2019 and 2018, if we can go back to that year, you can see that the government spending more money now. This government is spending more money now than what we spent in 2018 and 2019, and the results are woefully unacceptable at this time. And so we ask the question, what is different? We have more money, we should see better results. That's our expectation. What are we seeing? 43.1 billion for education in 2017. Worst pass rate in math in 2019 was 39%. In 2017 versus 34% in 2022. So if we had less money in 2017 and we gave 39% pass rate, we have more money in 2022 and the pass rate is 34%. So something is not adding up, something is not right. The education sector performed much better in terms of delivering results under the APNU AFC with far less resources, and that is given to the sector. Mr. Speaker, you know when I looked at the budget, I looked for measures in place that would provide ease for the poor people. Not only the poor people, the disadvantaged people too, sir. There's a particular unit in the sector that is dedicated to serving our children with disabilities, the special education needs and disabilities. I have noticed when I look at the indicators in 2023, 2022, and 2021, I have noticed that the performance has dropped significantly. And so outside of the numbers given in the budget documents, I decided to do an investigation. I decided to speak to people. And what I found was some serious challenges, sir. To date, only the Sophia Special School has a practical instructional center in this country. There's a breakdown in testing and diagnosis of learners and time taken to process the results. This impacts the preparation of the individualized education plan. Sir, how one caters for needs of learners with cerebral palsy in the mainstream schools as well as special needs schools? I do believe that extensive training is needed, and it appears that we are losing our teachers, our trained teachers and practitioners in this area. Sir, currently, the non-academic standard does not cater for all categories of SEND learners. Will this year's budget address these deficiencies, sir? I am hoping when the Minister of Education speaks tomorrow, she would spend some time to tell us about the challenges and what the education system intend to do, because we want to create equal opportunity for our children in our education sector. There's a need for more skill-based programs for learners with SEND. We should move in the direction of employing medical personnel for each SEND school or center. More SEND teachers are needed, as well as officers to better impact Ghana's special ed program. More training is needed to equip SEND teachers to better cater for the needs of our learners. Sir, when we commissioned the SEND Center in Region 3, we thought, that was one step in the right direction. It is important for us to understand that we have children with disabilities across the length and breadth of this country. And so 1 or 2 centers is not good enough. And I'm saying this at this point in time because this is the kind of infrastructure that we can put in place as an oil-producing nation. And I'm saying again that the 12% is insufficient, particularly for this kind of special needs infrastructure that is needed.
And honorable member, at this time, you'll need an extension.
Comrade Speaker, I move that the honourable member be given 5 minutes to conclude her presentation.
Thank you very much. Honorable member, you may continue to conclude.
Mr. Speaker, I recognize that a lot has to be done in the education sector for us to talk about education transformation. Mr. Speaker, could we not afford to give our teachers better salary? Could we not afford to give our teachers better working conditions instead of having them in rain, under a shed, or in a tent to deliver their curriculum? Could we not treat them with a little bit of respect and understand that the law provides for them to have good working conditions? Could we not afford to ensure all our teachers are technologically empowered with updated electronic devices? Sir, I believe that at this moment in our country, we should write off, and hear me, sir, we should write off all the student loan debts for every Guyanese who attended the University of Ghana. It takes nothing out of us to do that, sir, but it would be a great respect for the people of this country to do that. And this is how we will create economic dynamism for our young people and moreover, all Guyanese. Sir, why is it that after 4 budgets, our poor Guyanese student still has to pay huge sums of money per year to attend the Guyana School of Agriculture? That should be free, sir. Sir, we have as a nation one premier national university, and that is the University of Ghana. I'm proud of that institution, sir. Education should be free, sir. We can afford it. This is how we will develop our human resources in this country. Mr. Speaker, I believe that the Ministry of Education should embark on establishing a sports academy for our boys and girls who are so talented and should be trained. Sir, can we not incentivize post-secondary education, especially tech-voc education, where can we not afford to give our students in tech-voc a stipend so as to allow them to stay and to matriculate in their fields of study? Sir, I believe every secondary school in every region should be equipped with audiovisual and virtual classrooms in interconnected hubs. Mr. Speaker, every school was equipped with Wi-Fi under the APNU AFC, and I want to put on record, sir, 158 primary schools, 105 secondary schools, 30 tech-voc institutions, internet for the University 3 campuses, 72 hinterland communities. Sir, these are things that we have done as a coalition while in government, and all the ministry had to do was to continue with the infrastructure. And sir, we did all of that without all money. So I believe we can maintain them and we can do a lot more. Sir, Mr. Speaker, my colleagues earlier in the day mentioned that transportation to school for students is an economic burden for our parents. And so while the government disregarded the David G. 5B's program at a cost to our people, a reliable and cost-effective education, school transportation service is necessary to ease the financial burdens of every parent. I want to pause at this moment to ask the Minister of Education if she can find the buses that are still working and assign them to the students of Christ Church Secondary so that that can ease the transportation burden, since she did a very good job in placing them so quickly at CPC, but we recognize that CPC is so far out of Georgetown, it creates an economic burden on the parents. Sir, could we not at this time engage professionals to develop local media content designed to shape civic mindedness? I believe that is a low-hanging fruit for the ministry. And as it is right now, it will lend, a campaign like that will lend to greater understanding, greater tolerance and acceptance, as we are one people, one nation with one destiny. Mr. Speaker, would you notice that I've spent much time on the recommendations and proposals, because I want it to be noted, sir. We don't come and highlight the challenges. We come with the solutions too, because we have a plan and we know what development should be, sir. Sir, I want to specifically highlight some specific negative behavioral issues and challenges that we have seen in the press. Sir, let me wrap up by saying that we have seen a cycle of parents beating teachers, teachers beating students, head teachers beating teachers, and parents beating teachers. Sir, there's a lot of beating in that whole cycle of stakeholders in our education sector. Sir, I do believe that the HFLE unit of the Ministry of Education can do a lot more. I do believe that the Parent Teachers Association can come out and do some work and not just sit there because we employ them as family and friends. Sir, I cannot, in this current form of this budget, I really cannot support Budget 2023. I thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Member. Honorable Member, Mr. Dharam Kumar Siraj, it's your turn to make your contribution.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Laying a solid foundation for prosperity tomorrow and way ahead in the future. And Mr. Speaker, this budget is following a trend that is long established by this government, the People's Progressive Party civic government. And it has measures in place that are totally unrelated to election cycles. And I say this because sometimes in planning budget, politicians would look at what to do to make you the most popular party at the time of elections. On this side of the House, Mr. Speaker, the PPP civic government is concentrating on building a solid foundation for generations to come. And if you look at the budget also, especially in the big projects, the transformational projects, some of them have started, some will start this year, some will.
post debate presentation analysis that we've been running all day, folks. We thank you very much for your continued viewership. We hope that you continue to share the live stream as our MPs come in and you get the chance to hear from them what a further breakdown of what they presented in their budget. You just heard their Shadow Minister of Education, Natasha Singh Lewis MP, who presented her gave her a presentation on budget 2023, and we have so many things to extrapolate from that. But before we get to Natasha, we have MP Ricky Ramsey, who would have been on a little earlier. He's now joined us.
Welcome.
Thank you very much for joining us.
Thank you guys. Thank you, Randy and Shuka.
Great.
Well, we saw your time. You had a lot of issues with time because you had so much that you wanted to say. So, of course, here we will permit you to, give some of that information that you didn't get to. But I want to start out with the EIA situation.
Yeah, as is noticed, I was keep referring to a no EIA pay-to-pull government. I mean, look, Guyanese has to wake up. Let me tell you something. This oil and gas that we're getting here is a serious business. Despite the money and the boom, any single slip in a mishap of oil spill, Guyana done. All the money that you earn can go back there to clean that mess up. And the problem what we're getting is that the parent company guarantee we're not getting from ExxonMobil. It's a simple document that costs nothing, not a single dime. Why is it that we can't get a guarantee from ExxonMobil, the parent company? The government is jumping to EEPGL, which is a subsidiary, and you have CONOC, and then you have Hess. That is the three company now that is subsidiary to Exxon, that does all the production. These three companies here, they are banking that they have a $2 billion insurance policy. Now, I referenced to a spill in Monaco in the Gulf of Mexico, that it was estimated at 70 billion. But by the time it finished, it got to 145 billion US dollars to clean it up. I didn't get to finish my speech because I was going to go to Peru. Because in Peru, the company Repsol that is here in Guyana had an issue over there when there was a mishap. Repsol, the government of Peru, had to go and file a lawsuit against Repsol, who was reluctantly don't want to pay. And they couldn't recover. Now because of that mistake, they are now revising their law and policy. And here, Ricky Ramsey is telling the government of Guyana today that in the national budget 2023, that they're not put any money for the Environmental Protection Agency. We have put, we have built this institution, a new building. I don't know if you all went in the see, a brand new building. We have got $1 million US from World Bank to set up a 36-member squad, consists of professionals and scientists to be trained to deal with the situation like what I'm talking about. The oil spills, the gas leak, if there's any, dumping of toxic waste in the ocean, flaring.
I mean, you talk about EPA. I remember there being the head of EPA, somebody who had extensive background
of experience
in environmental work. I mean, somebody who is respected even by the US government in these places. And the government, after he would have given lots of advice, they would have just outed him. So we can see where the trouble lies in regards to EPA and getting these things done.
I want to tell you where that came from. Dr. Adams were fighting for having the parent company guarantee. The parent company guarantee is a simple formula. It is what you call full liability coverage is equals to parent company guarantee plus the insurance, liability insurance. Dr. Adams got ExxonMobil to sign that because he would have never signed Lisa 2. But by the time we could have got that done and agreed to sign it, he was being kicked out in August
Yeah.
2020.
And I know that Dr. Adams, because I spoke with him a number of occasions, he was advocating for similar stringent measures to be put in place before we signed the PIARA deal.
Yes.
Right? And, you know, of course, PIARA was held up till after the elections. And then, of course, we saw, you know.
As soon as they got back in government,
Yeah.
get rid of Dr. Adams,
And
they signed the PIARA.
PIARA deal, and they flaring like the heading go, they dumping stuff. And so it is a sense as if this administration doesn't care about the environment, they care about filling the pockets. Yes, we as Guyanese ought to be happy that we're getting money from oil exploration, but we have to do it in an environmentally sustainable manner. And that's the concern. I know that you raised that this idea of EIA, right? You have to see the impact on the environment, and you have to consult with the people when you're doing that.
Every single aspect of a mishap is being catered for in the EIA. The EIA is like a Bible. It's what guides you to any operation. All the major businesses in Guyana has to come through the EPA because the environment is important. And you see, I stressed on these hazards because you have to understand in a country like Guyana, not only Guyana will be affected. Trinidad will come after you. Barbados will come after you. The whole tourism industry, the ecological, the forest below the ocean is much more bigger than the one above.
Yeah, the
ecology there is much more bigger.
We have coastal neighbors that will be affected also.
And that is what that's why I was stressing so much. And I'm sorry that I only had 15 plus 5 minutes because I was going to beg for 5 minutes more because I haven't touched yet on the carbon credits and forestry.
Yeah, we could talk a bit
You
about
understand
that
me?
here.
So I wanted to talk about this carbon credits now. And you know, I keep saying no EIA, pay to pollute government. And pay to pollute meaning when they got the money from the oil companies at $10 US per cubic feet of gas when they flare to pay EPA. They paid, they think it is okay. Similarly, Hess bought 30% of the assessment done by R3s in terms of the carbon credits. I think it was 34.4 gigatons of carbon. That's about 30% of that, which equates to $750 million US. They backtracked it to 2016 to 2020, which means they will collect $150 million US shortly. We don't know if they collected it because we asked them to show us.
And there has been no response yet.
We haven't gotten a response to that as yet. But as I tell you, that's the transparency and the secrecy of the government.
Yep.
It is very much annoying. It is very much annoying because
it's not only just annoying, it is what we call undemocratic. There is no transparency, there is no accountability when you operate in that manner.
Yeah, absolutely. So in that $150 million US, they said they're going to give the Amerindian, the indigenous people 15%. Fair enough. The forestry sector or the forestry industry operators, they have 4.5 million hectares of land that they are paying royalties, acreage fees, doing internal roads that costing hundreds of millions of dollars, are paying hundreds of millions of dollars to do sustainable forest management. They got nothing from that money. People who own private lands and title land. Remember, I asked the question to the minister when they were doing the supplemental when it came and they had $300 million. I asked, what are the forests been assessed? He said the entire forest in Guyana, which means they also assess people who have private land and title lands. Where are those people money? You cannot give only one set of people the money and not giving the others. Even to the Guyana Forestry Commission. So what I'm saying, what I was asking them for, which should have been in the 2023 budget, is to give a $10 million US revolving fund, not the $300 million Guyana dollars that they're talking about. You can't get 450 operators and give them $300 million when a skidder thought $45 million. Sorry, $45 million. You can't do that. You only got to deal with 3 or 4 operators, right? So I'm saying put the 10 million US dollars in the consolidated, in the revolving fund, and also give the Guyana Forestry Commission a 3 million US dollars to do their operation, because they're the one who are doing this thing all the time. Nothing is in the budget for them. Nothing.
And they're the same people who had the whole conversation about what was happening in the Guyana Forestry Commission when the coalition was there. And they very well know we were grappling heavily when the coalition government came in handling the situation at Guyana Forestry Commission. It was really, really bad.
I'm happy you raised that. And let me tell you why. In the budget speech, the minister alluded that they took over a deplorable state of Guyana Forestry Commission. That's the word that he used. It was in a deplorable state. And we bankrupt Guyana Forestry Commission. Well, let me tell him, because I had it in my speech, I want the minister, the senior finance minister, or the natural resource minister to provide to me, or the public, or the media, the records that they left before 2050 when they were kicked out for corruption. When they were kicked out for corruption, the bank statement, if they have, if they got, provide that to us and show us where there was about money in the Guyana Forestry Commission. Let me tell you what they did with the money. $600 million went to the High Street White Elephant building. That was proven unsafe for human occupation. That money disappeared. They invested $300 million in CLECO. We got it back. Luckily, we got it back, but we got to the tranches. So when it comes, it's done. They invested over 400 million in approximately in Marriott Hotel. That up to today, we can't have a return on it.
And now they're looking to sell it.
And now they want to sell it. We put a $300 million in Ivory but I think President David Granger waived it, which was understandable because it was providing a very ecological and a conservation study for us. That was okay.
And a part to help with all of this recovery of the carbon.
All the carbon credits and all this, exactly. So you could have understand that. So there's a total of $1.6 billion that were removed from the coffers of GFC by the PPP government. So how can we bankrupt? We took over a bankrupt Guyana Forestry Commission.
Correct.
So it is still today they're paying staff by alphabetical order.
Yes, because I recently had some conversation with some persons there, and they're still in a situation where people are not being paid on time. People waiting 2 months to be paid a salary.
Yeah, but you hear they're talking about it. All of a sudden, you hear this figure of Guyana Forestry Commission increased 13-point-something percentage, 13.4% increase. I'm doubting the figures. But if you have bad roads, if you have production that people declare, pay the royalty at the end of the year, you just normally do that. It's one of the things that you just do. But the thing is not being extracted. How come the figure increased by that number? It means, therefore, that the produce is still in the forest. You maybe get your royalty, but the produce ain't come out yet.
And I know in the sector, the general natural resource sector, whether it be the Guyana Forestry Commission and the Guyana Geology and Mines, we know that the government is permitted to give concessions to operators in both sectors, where they have those duty-free allowances, etc. And one of the things as you hand out, as we see they're handing out all these concessions, if those persons are not able to basically, get their returns, they get this duty-free, but because one, especially in the situation of the forestry, the difficulty with roads that we've been seeing through that area there, how they're getting them out, they're having issues with, because when you get the duty, when they review it, it's based on what you have paid in, that you should be permitted another duty-free.
Absolutely.
But there are lots of issues, so now it's like a free-for-all. Anybody gets a duty-free. Everybody doing, whether you're making, and it is also costing the government.
Absolutely. You see, and you're speaking right in returning investment. Let me be honest with you. the interior roads is in a really deplorable state. Mabura Road, which is main access to loggers. Hydro Road, 40 miles in Sano, main access to loggers. Rockstone Bartica, Itabali, main for loggers. Aichuni Kokwani, to Linden, main access to the. All the roads are in a deplorable state. You know what we did when we were in government? We give the logger, we use money from GGMC because they were the main user. Give it to loggers to build the road. They come, they still do a little bit of it, but they change many of it. You cannot put people in the road here, outside here, in Joshua, to build up the road into the interior. They don't understand the terrain.
They're not doing any proper surveys. And here again, we hear another MP repeating the issue of no consultation from the ground, understanding what is needed, and the plan in every single sector. That's what we're seeing.
Yeah, because what it did is they cut numbers and just paste the numbers into the budget. There's no what we call the plan. I don't know if you guys have a look at which you should have a look at the Christopher Ram, I always call it something in the budget. There was a report.
The overview.
Yeah, there was an overview of the budget. And they did a very excellent job. I have to commend him to take the time and the effort to review back that budget to see where the gaps are. And one of the things is that there's no plan. There's no overarching plan to say that budget 2023 will be spent in this manner. They still got haphazard in terms of doing the budget.
Sporadic spending here, we spend there, and there's no
just
connection.
Cut and paste and yeah,
right.
Exactly, that's the word. There is no connection and flow that says, you know what, our country will move from point A to point B in 2023, and point B to point C in 2024.
And that speaks to lack of vision and planning.
I feel like
clearly,
you're putting together a vehicle, and you decide, hey, what, you can buy a wheel today.
Yeah.
And then we go buy a mirror. And you know what?
We touch it on it.
Yeah, let's just put it. This, you know, here we got this expensive mirror over there. Well, no, we need a crankshaft. You need, and it's so ad hoc. And this is what we're seeing. And as Shanika would have mentioned, every single MP that comes to sit in that seat says the same thing. In their ministry that they're shadowing or the portfolio that they're looking at, there's no linear plan that says, hey, this is the direction that we're going. This is the policy document. This is how we're going to combat this thing. This is how we're going to move to development. It just seems as if Jack Deal wakes up in the morning, as we said all day, and he said, here, we buy 2 planes from India.
And Ravi, you know, you're right. And we had a discussion last night on the same thing. Is that you wake up tomorrow morning and say, oh, I'm going to do this here.
Yeah.
You know, and you're right. You're young, you're intelligent, you understand what's happening. Except for the people who sit in the government, they don't understand a clue what's happening. They don't know what is up on them. They don't know what. And you see, I talked about in my budget. I spoke about the Dutch disease. How can you? We had early warnings from a professor from Trinidad that came down to warn us because they caught it. They give us an insight on how we should avoid it.
So we walking blindly into the
President
same thing.
went to Al Jazeera. You all see the interview?
Yes.
How can you tell a man who's so highly intelligent in terms of Al Jazeera, who is doing research as a journalist, that it doesn't exist?
Because he's so accustomed sitting down with non-journalists.
The man said that Ghana has, you know, when you talk about great health care, I'm like, which country is this man the president of again? Because I don't know what great health care he's talking about.
I had to. I mean, I'm not in parliament, so I can say this thing enough. You know, I had to laugh. I suck my teeth because, you know what? I remind them just now about the specialty hospital.
Yeah.
You understand me? I remind them about all those failed projects. I strongly believe they took 3 years. I can't start them on our bridge. You thinking of finish? Huh?
It's not just before election.
You talk about gas show. They said I think it was Sonia Parag said that which is right, that if you were going to finish the project, the Amara Bridge and the gas show project, that take a big chunk of the budget gonna drop. With what I mentioned, all the projects that they had, Randy and Shanika, were failed.
Failed projects.
Massive projects. Hundreds of millions of US dollar project. you think that they will drop budget, they'll find it to spend somewhere else, set up some shadow projects, some dream that will send to the Guyanese people to believe that it will happen. Like they believe the Amelia Falls project gonna happen.
And they're still talking about it.
The IDB
After having the IDB, handing that report that clearly said this thing cannot
it's not
work.
feasible.
The minister responsible for finance stood in his presentation to blame the coalition government for blackout, stating because we didn't go ahead with Amila. I mean, it's unbelievable.
And and we're so blessed with the abundance of resources. And that is the reason why I had to stress on the environmental and the EIAs. Because let me tell you what, I didn't get to finish the Gas Shore project. I'm going to ask David if he can continue on the Gas Shore because he's going to do something on Gas Shore. But they did an EIA. But in the EIA, there's something called a management plan for leak.
It's absent.
It is not there. And the consultant who did that plan, what do you call it, EMR, something like that, they ignored that part, didn't stick into the EIA. And that is the problem that I got. Because if there's a leak in the gas, Randy, like I was doing research, Elizabeth in New York, 5 years and EPA can't clean the smell of that stench.
Certainly those issues will continue to look at them as we make our way back to the floor. Thank you very much, MP. Mr. Hebraj, MP Hebraj is out his presentation. I say thank you for joining us. The rest of the evening. Let's head back to the floor, folks.
is also noted, Mr. Speaker, and which I strongly recommend, is that government should reduce or subsidize the cost of freight for vehicles transporting local produce across the Borbridge and Demerara bridges, as well as on the transport and harvest ferries. This will surely reduce the costs reaching the consumer. Mr. Speaker, to cushion the rising cost of living, government intends to continue with the part-time job program, which is started in 2022. Person will work for 10 days per month and receive $40,000 for their 10 days job. This year, Mr. Speaker, $10 billion were allocated in the budget to support this program with the intention of employing more persons. Mr. Speaker, is this how the government intends to create jobs for our citizens? Or is it a way of rewarding their supporters? Mr. Speaker, I did some investigation into these workers. There's no job description. Most of the time, they have nothing to do. They make no contribution to the National Insurance Scheme, Mr. Speaker. I have no doubt that this is an ingenious way of using state resources to reward the supporters of this government. More than 90% of the persons employed under this program are supporters of the PPP. Mr. Speaker, I have no issue with government spending to provide jobs for poor and vulnerable in an attempt to create better living conditions, but it must be inclusive. No one should be marginalized because of his political persuasion or ethnicity. In 2023, let us see the One Guyana principle being applied. With the $10 billion allocated under this program, I call on the government to select persons because they are citizens of Guyana and are equally entitled to benefit from all government programs. They must not be rejected because of their political alliance. The Honorable Minister announced that government again this year has set aside the sum of $5 billion for additional cost of living measures to be determined from the ongoing community engagement. There are no clear indication again, Mr. Speaker, as to what this sum would be used for. This is another source of state fund available to the government to give their supporters under the guise of grants. $5 billion in the hands of government to do as it please and no question asked. Mr. Speaker, the Honorable Minister has announced that this year, the monthly public assistance will be increased from $14,000 to $16,000, an increase of $2,000. Old age pension will be increased from $28,000 to $33,000, an increase of $5,000. A far cry from the $50,000 that was promised by this government in their campaign. Mr. Speaker, the aged and the vulnerable will accept the crumbs thrown to them by this government because they have no alternative. But in a country with the fastest growing economy, with billions received from oil, is this the way we show gratitude to the elderly and care for the vulnerable? An increase of $5,000 in these times of high cost of living will have little or no impact on the life of these persons. Mr. Speaker, government should have considered giving the elderly and the vulnerable much more than was announced. Mr. Speaker, we ought to have done better for elderly and the poor in these times of high cost of basic food items, where the cost of basic food items has skyrocketed. We have the resources and we can afford it. Let's do it. The Honorable Minister has announced this year that income tax threshold has been increased from $75,000 to $85,000, a mere $10,000. Mr. Speaker, income tax threshold should have been increased to $100,000 to have a significant impact. If my calculations are correct, the saving resulting from the present measure would be between $2,500 to $2,800 per month. How effective would this be to counter the rising food prices? Mr. Speaker, what about the person earning $225,000 per month and above? Why were they not considered for income tax relief? Government should have revised the calculation to tax charge of income at a rate of 25% on the first $170,000 per month, and thereafter 30% on the remaining sum, instead of the present 28% and 40% as currently used. Mr. Speaker, with budget of $781.9 billion. Every single Guyanese ought to benefit from these measures. Mr. Speaker, one of the effective ways of cushioning the effect of rising costs of living is the reduction of the value-added tax. Citizens over the years have been calling on government to reduce VAT. The APNE plus AFT government fulfilled its promise made to the Guyanese public when VAT was reduced from 16% to 14%. At that time, AFC government was not fortunate enough to have the proceeds of oil to support its decision to reduce VAT. But it was done knowing it will benefit our citizens. Today, Mr. Speaker, despite the continuing rise of cost of living and the expected exponential increase in earning from oil, this government has failed to consider reducing VAT by even 1%. Mr. Speaker, reducing VAT by 2% would have made a significant impact in increasing the easing the burden currently faced by our citizens. With our economy growing at a very fast rate from proceeds from both oil and non-oil sector, there should have been no hesitation by this government to reduce VAT by at least 2%. University students, Mr. Speaker, and potential university students are again disappointed. They are still waiting for the promise made to them by this government to make university education free. Again, Mr. Speaker, university students are finding it's very challenging to meet the cost of their education. The Honorable Minister has announced that in 2023, the government will spend $1.8 billion to provide free education for students under the Gold Scholarship Program. Nothing is wrong with this, Mr. Speaker. It is a good thing to assist students to educate themselves. But when will the Honorable Minister explain to the university students why they were not considered for free education again this year? Will the Minister explain to these students why they were not even considered for a reduction in the cost of their fees? Are these students not equally entitled to free education as the Gold students? Explain to us, Mr. Minister. We want answers. Mr. Speaker, it is very inconsiderate for this government for 4 years to deny students of our university free education. It's time to give our students what they were promised and what they deserve. We can afford it. Let us assist our young people to prepare themselves for the bright future we all anticipated. Mr. Speaker, we were told that UD students are recipients of PSM scholarships by the Honorable Minister Parag. What I want to know is it all the university students receiving PSM scholarships? I know it's not so. So let us consider those students that has to pay. Mr. Speaker, last year during my budget speech, I had raised the issue of government providing dialysis service on the Essequibo Coast for patients in need of dialysis. Today, Saudi Regional Hospital is offering the service to patients at a cost of $10,000 per session. This is possible through the collaboration between government and a private firm. The patients are grateful for this intervention, but we're hoping that government would have provided service free of cost. They are now calling, Mr. Speaker, for at least 2 sessions per week to be free, and if it's possible, to remove the $600,000 grant per year. Because $10,000 would also give us 1 session per week. Mr. Speaker, it would be remiss of me not to raise some issues facing the citizens of Region 2. In my speech on Budget 2022, I had raised the issue of resident living between Queenstown and Supanam on the Essequibo Coast, complaining bitterly about the quality of water supplied by the GWI. I highlighted that the water supplied to this part of the coast is untreated and had high iron content. Nothing has been done to improve this situation to date. However, I have noted that the Honorable Minister has disclosed that in 2023, advanced work on the construction of a water treatment plant on the Niming, Charity and Water. We in the region anxiously await the early commissioning of these facilities. and to receive an improved quality of water provided to us. We deserve this, and it's long overdue.
Thank you, Honorable Member. We await an extension for you. Honorable Member, Mr. Jones.
Thank you very much, Comrade Speaker. Comrade Speaker, I ask that the Honourable Member be given 5 minutes to conclude his presentation.
Thank you, Honorable Member, Mr. Jones. Honorable Member, you may continue. Mike.
Mr. Speaker, in 2022, the people in Region 2 were promised the establishment of an industrial estate at Ondoniming, Essequibo Coast. We are now told, nothing was done in 2022 towards this project. However, we are now told that the work will commence in 2023 for the establishment of the industrial estate. We are awaiting the early completion of this project and anticipate the building of a business incubator to assist in the development of a small entrepreneur in our region. Mr. Speaker, in 2022, Region 2 was promised a new modern regional hospital at Anne Regina. This year, we learned that it will be built at Lima. We hope that the construction of this facility will not commence in the near future. Will be commenced in the near future. Mr. Speaker, last year I had indicated to this House that the main road from Charity to Supanam has started to deteriorate and call on government to effect remedial work. To date, little or no work has been done to correct this situation. Mr. Speaker, the cracks that were seen last year have graduated the potholes. I am again calling on government to take steps to repair our road before it gets worse. Mr. Speaker, I cannot conclude without saying something about our rice industry. Rice, as we all know, is the background of Region 2. Many farmers suffered tremendously from the excessively heavy rainfall experienced in 2022. Many farmers along the coast were unable to reap their crop. They suffered tremendous financial loss and are at the verge of bankruptcy. These rice farmers are calling for government for financial help. One farmer informed me that the concerns were reported to the GRDB, but to date, they have not received any response. Mr. Speaker, farmers along the coast have complained. Mr. Speaker, farmers along the coast have complained that access dam leading to the backlands are in deplorable state. Dams at Marais Lodge, Golden Fleece, Reliance, Marais Delight, and Better Success, to name a few areas that need attention. The farmers are calling on government to repair these dams, so that they can have easy access to their fields. Mr. Speaker, all is not well with rice in Essequibo. The high cost of input compared to the price received for a bag of paddy is of great concern to the farmers. Farmers appreciate the effort made to secure new markets. The farmers are faced with high cost of production, are calling for an increase in the price for a bag of paddy. Mr. Speaker, I take this opportunity to call on government to provide some financial assistance to the farmers of Region 2. Just as the cash grants were made available to the sugar workers and the fisher folks, it is time to provide some financial assistance to the struggling rice farmers in Region 2. There is the money is available. Let us use it. Essequibo rice farmers are in need. Let's support them now. Mr. Speaker, this $781.9 billion budget presented this year is indeed the largest budget presented in our history. It has no realistic plan of improving the well-being of our citizens. It has failed to bridge the gap between the poor and the rich. Our citizens are disappointed. They expect much more than the crumbs thrown to them. The fastest growing economy and revenue received from oil, government could have done much more to improve the lives of our citizens. This budget may have a plan for infrastructure development for the future, but it sure lacks the capacity to create wealth and improve the lives of our ordinary people today. Thank you very much.
Yeah. Very good. Excellent.
Thank you very much, Honorable Member. Our final contribution for this evening is the Honorable Member, Dr. Thandika Smith. Honorable Member, you may proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. Mr. Speaker, as I rise to give my support to Budget 2023, I wish to express my sincere gratitude to the Honorable Minister, Dr.
Joining us and staying with us actually on our budget, post-budget debate presentation analysis. A long name. It's like the name of the Minister of Finance, his official name, right? The minister within the Ministry of the Presidency responsible for finance. But we have a long name for the program. What we have done today was to bring you insights into the budget presentations by the opposition members of parliament and give you their post reaction. They came in and gave us that and discuss in details what the time would not permit them to do on the floor with us here today. We've been on this since early this morning, Shanika and I.
Something.
And so we'll be back tomorrow, of course, to continue with that. We, of course, will be speaking with MP Hemraj and MP Singh Lewis.
Natasha Singh Lewis.
Right. Tomorrow
morning.
Very early to give their post comments on their budget presentation. We hope that you enjoyed the program. We hope that you learned. We hope that you are informed and educated on the issues affecting you and the rest of Guyana coming out of this budget and the suggestions being put forward by the opposition members of parliament as we continue to look at budget 2023.
And I mean, ensure that you tell a friend that this is happening for the week, because we already know that the government media houses as NCN, etc., will not be giving us the coverage we need. So it is upon you, and it's on your onus to, join our pages, the People's National Congress Reform page, APN UAFC page, and all the other pages that we have.
The opposition and all the other MPs pages.
And follow us, comment. Let's talk about what you're saying as well. So you can put in those comments. We'll try to see how many of those tomorrow as we talk that we can read and, interact with the MPs. It was definitely a good day.
Yes.
I think our MPs for today did an awesome
excellent job at representing your causes.
All right. So tomorrow, we'll be here at the start of the debate.
10 a.m. tomorrow, bright and early. We'll be here to continue to break down budget 2023. Do enjoy the rest of your evening.
Good night.